So once again, we are Lahontan Audubon Society. We are a local nonprofit independent chapter of the National Audubon Society. Um, we are based in Reno, Nevada, and we do everything that we can to promote bird education, bird conservation, and we do most of our events for free. And a lot of our events that we do are volunteer based. And so we're really happy to be able to offer these classes to you. Through a grant from the Nevada Arts Council, we've been able to get both John Muir Laws and Christine Elder to come and teach us a little bit about drawing birds. And if you like these workshops, please let us know. And we can try and hopefully get more projects like this going on in the future. So I just wanted to give a brief introduction because I realized that because we have so many people from all over, I realized that some people may not know what the word Lahontan means. And the name of our group, Lahontan Audubon Society, is, if you can go to the next slide, it's basically based on an ancient lake that once existed in Nevada. A long time ago during the Pleistocene. It was a much wetter period. The climate was much cooler. The amount of desiccation and evaporation was a lot lower. And that allowed a lot of water to form these giant lakes. Lake Lahontan is that big blue spot you see that covers a large part of northwestern Nevada. And it actually includes the drainages of the Humboldt River, the Truckee River, the Carson River, and the Walker River. And so once upon a time, long time ago, there was this great lake, and we had these marine reptiles that were about the size of a bus even, that swam in these giant lakes. That is the ichthyosaur. And that is our state fossil. So if you ever wonder why our state fossil was something that lived underwater and could be the size of a school bus, this is why. This is Lake Lahontan, and this is approximately the region that we reach through with our chapter. So as we said before, there are 3 Audubon chapters in Nevada, and that's, Lahontan Audubon, and over to the east, we have the Bristlecone chapter, and down to the south, we have the Red Rock Audubon Society. So where you see all these blue polygons and these big lakes, you can see the lighter blue, and maybe Jenny can point out some of these lakes, but you can see Lake Tahoe on the border of Nevada and California, Pyramid Lake, which is up to the north. And then there's Walker Lake all the way down south, and then the Carson wetlands over to the east, which is where we just had our Spring Wings Bird Festival. So a lot of these lakes are remnants of this giant Pleistocene lake. And not surprisingly, a lot of these places where there is water, where there's lakes, or even if there's not lakes, there might be spring complexes. That's where it's really important for the birds in Nevada. And it's really important. They're really important places for conserving as habitat for the birds, because water in the desert is a very scarce resource, and it's also a very important resource. So we have this program called the Important Bird Area, where we've identified many of these places. And not surprisingly, a lot of our important bird areas are in areas where some of these water spots used to be and still exist. And it's very important to conserve them even today. So I'm going to introduce my good friend, Bob Goodman. He's a local photographer, wildlife watcher, and he is a huge advocate for one of our local important bird areas that I'd like to introduce to you, and that is Swan Lake. So I'm going to introduce Bob, and he's going to take it away. If before we do that, actually, if you have any questions, please type them in the Q&A button, because Bob is going to interactively answer some of the questions for you that you might have as he speaks.
Okay, I guess I'm on.
You're on, Bob.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Diane. As you notice, I'm not on the screen, and I I did that as a favor to everybody. No, I don't know how to work this Zoom thing. Anyway, so my involvement with Swan Lake is what we're going to talk about this evening. Started 31 plus years ago. And that's when some Audubon members brought to the attention of Ken Pulver, the then president of the Houghton Audubon, that there's a lot of birds out in the sewer pond. The sewer pond was the waters that rested in Lemon Valley, and the locals called it a sewer pond because there's a biological decomposition sewer plant run by Washoe County. The name was not appropriate, but it didn't matter to the locals. But so 30 some years ago, Ken Pulver was, I said, president of Houghton Audubon. I was the conservation chair. So we got together and see what we could do with the requests from the birders that were out in the sewer pond. So Ken was very, very familiar with a lot of the political people around not only Reno, but Carson and that. He's a retired detective with the Reno PD. And he, in his job, he met a lot of different people. So he, and I was familiar with the wildlife and wetlands and photography and writing. So we got together and laid out a plan to see what we could do to protect the area, which is what the people, suggested we see if we could do. So we've laid out a plan of who do we need to contact, why do we need to contact them, how do we need to contact them. The concept from 30 years ago as a sewer pond to today as a nature study area was it was a rather long journey, but it involved not nearly the time that Mona Lake did. The Mona Lake Committee, if you're familiar with Mona Lake, it took them over 20 years to establish any meaningful protection for Mona Lake. So it only took us 8 years. So that was pretty quick. One of the things we involved was the local governments, the landowners, which included the Bureau of Land Management, the Nevada military, a lot of private ownership, the city of Reno, and Washoe County was a big landholder. So during the formation of what we needed to do, we came up with what we call the Swan Lake Advisory. Well, no, we didn't. Excuse me. Let's go back a little bit. We needed to have a management plan. So we talked Tom Stilley, who was a local landscape architect and a very avid birder and that. And so we all, through this whole association of people, came up with the Lemon Valley Marsh and Playa management plan, which came out in, I think, 1992, something like that. Anyway, I forget the dates. All of my records went away in a fire 14 and a half years ago. So I'm sort of playing it by memory, and that's not a good thing. So anyway, so through our meetings of the people involved, we came up with, we called ourselves the Swan Lake Advisory Committee. While we were toying with the name of Lemon Valley Marsh and Playa, one of our members came up with an 1895 Peavine mining district map, which listed Swan Lake, where we were talking about, Silver Lake to the west, and then White Lake to the northwest there. So we have these three bodies of water. So we, it didn't take long to come to the realization that we should be calling this Swan Lake, not Lemon Valley Marsh. We held many public meetings. trying to get people on board to support the idea of this as a nature study area. The Ken Pulver would do the introductions and stuff like that, and then he turned it over to myself. I had by then accumulated enough slides to do a slide presentation on not only the species of birds, but the scenic and the recreational and the educational opportunities that made up Swan Lake. If I can recall just one meeting out at the Lemon Valley Community Center, I had been there early, set my slide projector screen up, and was sitting in the back of the room. This elderly gentleman came in and he sat down. He says, "I have no idea what I'm doing here to talk about a sewer pond." So I didn't say anything to him, but I went up. Then I made my presentation. I came and sat back down, and he says, "Well, Sonny," I was younger then. He says, "Well, Sonny, I guess I'm never too old to learn." And he really appreciated it and became a good supporter of Swan Lake. So that's how Swan Lake got its name. We were wondering, what it meant. At another time, we had the science teachers from Washoe County out there, and we were on the south end of the lake where what now the parking lot is. And some white birds came in and landed at the north end. And I said, "Whoa, I think I need something to do here." So I jumped in my van and went over there. And that was the beginning of the swans coming in for the winter at Swan Lake. So it was very appropriately named. Let me get back to the Swan Lake Advisory Board. And this was made up of representatives from all of the agencies, the non-governmental organizations, local individuals that were interested in the preservation of Swan Lake. It's a textbook example of how a community can come together and achieve something that is pretty darn good. As we were going through this, the people that were involved, the stakeholders are now called, where is a win-win situation, so everybody was on board. All of a sudden, Washoe County says, "Whoops, we can no longer support the idea of this being a nature study area." The reason being, the risk managers of Washoe County said, "Wait, we're dealing with water here. Water is a high risk as far as recreation goes. And so we cannot support having this as a nature study area." That was a real blow. And it could be a game changer to where it would be the end of the problem. But Ken, in his wisdom, was a personal friend of then Senator Richard Bryan, who lived in Las Vegas. He got a hold of him. Richard Bryan came up with his chief of staff. Ken took the senator out in his canoe. I took the chief of staff out in my canoe. We toured around, there's enough water. We toured around what was Swan Lake and took them back, explained what was going on. And within a month of our canoe trip, Washoe County said, "We really, really want to be on board." So I have no idea what happened in that time period. Don't need to know, but we now have the county on board, and which today is actually in charge of the Swan Lake facilities and improvements and maintenance and that. So that was a very good canoe trip. Let me see what important bird area. I forget what year it was, but Don McIver was the important bird area representative on Audubon, the Lawton Audubon. And to have an important bird area recognized as such, you had to submit a nomination. And there was certain criteria that would be involved in making it an important bird area. So I nominated Swan Lake as an important bird area because we had nesting American avocets. We had nesting black-necked stilts, which were at that time were species of concern on a national level. So when we had breeding grounds, they became very important. The third species was the burrowing owls, which used to inhabit the west shore of Swan Lake. They have left. We built nesting boxes for them. The ground squirrels took them over. So we have not seen burrowing owls out there for quite a while. But the important bird area was approved and recognized as an important bird area because of the 3 nesting species at that time that inhabited Swan Lake. There is some misconception that the number of species of an area has a lot to do with the IBA, but that was not the case here, even though we did have nearly 200 species. But the important bird area became important in IBA because of the stilts, the avocets, and the owls. I just sort of like to point that out. Let's see if I went over. So 30 years ago, it seemed maybe a little silly to be concerned about protecting Swan Lake because it was in the middle of nowhere. It was not, used by anybody except a few birders. But 30 years between the 1991 or 1990 and today, a lot has happened in Lemon Valley. If we did not start the process when we did, it would probably be filled in and developed as a lot of the area around the lake is. We've had tremendous cooperation in the formation of this from the neighborhood advisory boards, from all the people involved. And I guess I should mention in April of 1999, Senator Richard Bryan came up and he led the dedication of Swan Lake as a nature study area on the military land on the west shore of Swan Lake. We had Jim Idell, who was at that time the president of Lahontan Audubon, a lot of members of all of the groups that were involved in getting it to where it was today, or where it is today, excuse me. And so it was very nice. We also had a 10-year anniversary in 2009. A lot of the people showed up again. The community was there in full support. We had all kinds of things going on for the community members. And if you go out there today, you'll see there's a warehouse being constructed right up to the boundary of the Swan Lake Nature Study Area. A few years ago, Nevada had a ballot question called Question 5, and this was to see if the state would support taxes to support recreation areas. We made a presentation out at or down in Carson City to the legislature. They approved it. We received Question 5 money, bought 40 acres of land in the title to Washoe County, and that is where the interpretive area, and that is today, and that is where that cedar fence is, and that's where the construction built up to. So anyway,
yes. I'm going to interrupt you really quick. I think that was such a wonderful introduction to one of our amazing, important bird areas here local to Reno. As Diane mentioned, we have quite a few others, but Swan Lake is one that we've been working on for some time, as Bob shared a lot of the history there, and he has been an amazing proponent of that site, and I think we should give him a quick round of applause. It's truly an amazing grassroots effort to protect that Swan Lake area, and we are actively working to continue stewarding the area. It's an important resource. And if you're not local here to Reno, I encourage you to come out and visit us here and check out Swan Lake or one of our other important bird areas. If that's not an option for you, there's important bird areas across the US. So check out an area near you, but also you can nominate new areas. And as Bob was sharing his history and how he had worked through that process of really a grassroots effort to protect that area. And huge thanks to Bob for sharing some of that history tonight. But we're gonna, without further ado, jump into the drawing section. So thank you so much, Bob, for joining us.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
And as Diane mentioned earlier, if you have Q&A, we should have time at the end of the session. Put those questions in the Q&A rather than the chat. Things tend to get lost in the chat because there will be other conversations going on there. And there will be recording of this webinar as well as the other webinars that we have done over the last 5 weeks. Diane neglected to introduce herself this evening, but she is our development coordinator, Vista, and she is the brains behind this operation. So big thanks to Diane for coordinating these webinars. Parker is another one of our Vistas, and he's here to support with tech support. And of course, a huge thank you to our artists. Christine Elder was the first 2 webinars. And of course, we have Jack here tonight, AKA John Muir Laws. And we're able to offer these webinars thanks to a grant from the National Arts Council, or Nevada Arts Council, and National Endowment for the Arts, as well as our donors and our members. So thank you so much to those of you who are able to support these programs. It allows us to offer them to folks who aren't able to pay at this time. So thank you for joining us. And without further ado, I will pass it on to you, Jack. Thanks so much for being here.
Well, Jeannie, thank you so much for being here. And I also want to give my respect and my thanks to Bob. Hearing from one of the on-the-ground stewards who made this project happen just gave me chills. It really, I think it's important for all of us all to think about the kind of difference that a small group of feisty birders can make. It is inspiring. You know, you never know what comes of a canoe ride. It's such a powerful way to, I think we just heard the testament of the land speaks for itself, getting that land in front of the eyes of people who can make decisions, and then organizing the community around protecting these places. It takes work, it takes effort. Think of the places near you where you would like to make a difference, and you can. So I think if anybody has any questions for myself or for Bob, let's please put those in the chat. And at the end of this, we will, I hope we can hear from Bob again, and I also might be able to answer some questions that people have. That was wonderful to hear. And on behalf of all the birds who couldn't be on this show tonight, hey, Bob and crew, thank you guys so much. That's
thank you. That's very nice to hear. Yeah,
just mad, deeply respect what you did.
Thank you.
So folks, please also include in the chat any questions that you have for also Bob. If the moderators would let me know when I'm 20 minutes to the end of it, I'll take then the last 5 minutes to finish up what we're doing, and then we'll have 15 minutes for a question and answer period at the end. So please let me know 20 minutes before we should be going to questions. Could we maybe take down that share screen, and then I will be able to share. All right, excellent. So what I'm going to be doing is showing you folks some tricks about a system of sketching and drawing birds that I absolutely love. It's using toned paper. So if you've ever been out in the Nevada desert sketching, you know what intense solar radiation can do when reflected off your paper into your little birder eyes. You can go snowblind from looking at your paper. So the toned paper is one great solution to this. But in addition to that, it's much easier on your eyes. The second is that it allows you to do some really, really cool, fast effects. You can buy whole sketchbooks of toned paper. And if you can't find those in your area, you can find grocery bags and cut pieces out of those and either tie them or staple them together and bring that out into the field with you, or you can take some pieces of that paper and glue it into another sketchbook that you have. So I think by the end of this, you're gonna be thinking, I want to get me some toned paper. Let's take a look at why it's so cool. We're gonna be taking a look at two species that you can find in Nevada. One is the northern harrier. It used to be called the marsh hawk. It's this cool bird that circles low over the marshes with its wings kind of in a V. And it's got a face like an owl. Flies during the day, but it's got a face like an owl because it's listening up ahead. And it's got a facial disc for hearing what's like over the next bush. So it's like there's a little bunny out there kind of going, right? You can hear that as it's coming along and just drops right down on top of it. Sad bunny, happy raptor. It's really an amazing, amazing system. We're also going to be taking a look at one of my favorite birds, the black-billed magpie. And if this bird was rare, people would love it and they would come from miles and miles around. But because this bird is kind of like out there, some people just sort of lost their respect for the magpie. It's an absolutely spectacular bird, and it is with us through the harshest conditions and weather. So it's a neat beast because you can go sketch yourself some magpie any time of the year. And also, if you sketch a bunch of magpies, the shape of the magpie will teach you a lot of interesting things about drawing a whole bunch of other birds. All right, let's take a look at our black-bell and the harrier. I am going to share this screen, hide this. I'm going to make two other little adjustments here. I'm going to hide the video panel and the floating meeting controls. There we go. All right, let's take a look at, this is toned paper. See, it's paper, but it's toned, right? How can you tell it's toned? Because it's not white. That's white. That's toned paper, toned white. All right, so look at this. Here's why this is so ridiculously cool. With normal paper, what can you do? Right? You've got a range of light to dark. So you've got your pencil. You can make things dark, right? And by going lighter, you go lighter and lighter and lighter until you get to the white of your paper. All right, that's kind of neat. All right, but that's where you stop. Right? Now, however, if you have a piece of toned paper, you've got all your dark values here. You've got the color of your toned paper, and then you can do this. You can go from white to whiter to whitest with just a little colored pencil. And so normally we run out of value range when we get to the color of the paper, right? With this, I still have the full value range that I can get with my regular pencil. And then I can kind of bring it into this light. And what's fun about this is that sometimes it's easier, you'll see for some things, it's easier to draw dark lines on a light surface. Other places and other times, it's easier to draw light lines on a dark surface. And this system is going to allow you to do both. So let's start with just a really cool harrier here. right? Want to mention that thanks to 4 folks for the photographs I'm using in this presentation. Photographers Vivek Kanzode, Ashok Khosla, Bob Goodman, and Martin Myers. Thank you folks so much for letting us use your photograph collections for educational purposes. You can see Vivek and Ashok's work at birdpixel.com and seeingbirds.com. If you want to use, go there afterwards to kind of do some more sketching on toned paper, that's where I'm going to point people. All right, so there's a Harrier. All right, so we look at it and go like, wow, we've got a really neat collection of light and dark. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make a quick sketch here. Actually, first I'm going to make a diagram of the shape of this bird and help us understand it. And then I'm going to show you how I would sketch that with toned paper. So let's take a look here. There's sort of a basic underview of the body of this bird. I'm going to start with sort of a cross shape, a little cross shape. And that's going to give me a place for my body, my undertail coverts, and my long tail that sticks out underneath. Up in front, I'm going to put a little head up here. My wings stick out either side. And let's give it some little feet. The feet kind of dangle down here onto these undertail coverts. Now for the wing, I want to think of the wing initially as a board sticking out like this. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide that board. Actually, I'm going to make this a longer board, because it's a rather long winged bird. I am going to divide that board into 2 parts. One part close to the body, one part farther away from the body. Those are called the primary feathers, and those are called the secondary feathers. And the secondary feathers here, the front edges of curves up, back edge of it curves up to a little bit of a flat wrist area up here, where its little bird wrist is. And the primary feathers, they fan out from this point here. And as they do, you're going to see that the outer tips of them have points, sort of fingering. The inner part of them doesn't. So the inner part of those primary feathers is not fingered. So now what I can do is I want to look at it, and I like to, on a toned paper drawing, when I'm starting them, initially just to think of them in 3 sections, in 3 different sections for values and colors. There's the dark part. There is the light part. And then there is something in between. And this ends up being a really, really important thing. I'm going to actually leave some parts of my bird gray, the gray color of the paper. And then I've got 3 different values. And so let me just sort of show you kind of how this is going to work. I kind of squint at it, and I see I've got some dark colors in there. I've got some light colors in there. And all right, what am I going to do about that? Well, I'm going to put across the belly some light. I'm going to bring some light down into the tail. And you'll notice that I am doing the, actually probably be good to erase that pencil line. Should have done that beforehand, because it's hard to erase anything once you get colored pencil on top of it. The colored pencil is a little bit more waxy, but as you can see up here, I can draw over that waxy colored pencil really easily. So what I will often do is just sort of look at it and go like, all right, it's got white in the belly and it's got pale in the tail. Up in the front part of the wing in here, there's some pale part. And then there's spots all over it. But out here in this part of the wing, there is a bunch of pale as well. So I'm just looking, where are light values on my bird? And then I'm going to take my regular graphite pencil and I am going to put in over that, I'm going to just draw the dark parts that I see over that. So now I've got light on dark. Dark on my light. Up here in the head is looking pretty dark. And then it's kind of coming streaking out. From that. I'm doing mine more from a straight underneath view, not that angled head that you're seeing in the photograph over there. What about the wing over here? There's a kind of zone of curved feathers that come up over the top part of the wing called covert feathers. There's a little panel of feathers that sticks out here. And the edges of these are covered with darker feathers. Also, the edges of the feathers here are covered with darker feathers. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to draw in these edges. Here, not drawing in individual feathers. I'm just sort of saying that there's a big zone of feathers that are dark in here. And there's another row of feathers that are dark in here. And then I can see another in here. And then I am going to put dark tips on these feathers here. And there's a series of dark bars over these. Roughly like that. There are a few little dark feathers in here. So I get this, maybe I want a little bit more of a fade in here. I tend to do the pencil first and then the graphite, because if I do the graphite first and then the pencil over it, it smudges and smears the graphite. What about in here? So there's my order of operations. I start with a general pencil sketch. I will put in my lights. I will put in my darks, and I'll put some details over some of those lights. And then I stop, because I want there to be also some parts of my drawing that have that sort of general gray background color. So I can either make the background of this darker, making that light stand out, or I could make the background of this lighter, making the dark stand out. This is essentially the bag of tricks that in the first few minutes here that I'm going to be recycling as we kind of look through all these different birds. Let's take a look at this one. So here's a male northern harrier. And what you're seeing is kind of this hooded look, very pale, dark on the secondary feathers there, dark kind of pointing out on the primaries. And that back wing is really in shadow. Take a look at the shadows on this. This is a great little bird to draw. And what I'm going to do is, let's see, let's draw that. Let's draw that in here. I'm going to first just sort of lightly block it in here. So it's got a wing that is coming down. It has a body that is crossing that, not quite at right angles. And then I see that far wing sticking out here. Oh, and my birds are running into each other. I guess I'll just have to make peace with that. So I'm just initially kind of going, where is your big wing here? Where is your big wing here? If you look over on that photograph on the left, the break between the primaries and the secondaries is about here. So these are all primary feathers out here. The outer ones with dark tips, they've got dark tips on them because the melanin in those dark tips are sort of strengthens them and protects them from wear. And then less in here, big white underside. Okay, cool. So I've got this bird roughly blocked in. And so then what am I going to do? I'm going to draw in the front edge of its wing here. And then we have our primary feathers sticking out here. And the primary feathers are going to fan slightly in here like that. So this next one straight back in. This next one, maybe want to make that one a little bit longer. So some few longer ones. Notice how I'm kind of aiming these feathers in towards the wrist here. And then a shorter one in here. Back end, here's my back of my primaries, secondaries. My belly of my bird comes down here. It's going to tuck up into here. The angle on this tail is going to be different on both sides here. The side coming in much straighter. And down to the head, a little slope down to angry bird's head, sort of right in here looking at you. All right. Now, how am I? Oh, there's a wing on the other side. That's right. So it comes out. And these ones here, they're also going to fan, pointing towards this point here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and a little 5. All right. So how would I treat this with colored pencil? I'm going to look at where the sun is shining. So the sun's not shining on the belly. The sun is on the side of the body up here, but not down here. So I'm going to leave that the color of the gray. I'm going to let this whole wing out here be gray. And then I'm going to draw in with my white pencil where the hand and the covert feathers of the secondaries are. And then I'm going to draw in, notice I'm kind of following that angle of the feathers, fanning these feathers towards this wrist point here. So these primary feathers, as I'm drawing in, not individual feathers, but sort of making my white zone in here, my marks follow the fan of that wing. And then a little bit coming down here. There's a little bit of sunlight catching back here on the tail. A little bit in here. The rest I'm going to leave in shadow. So it's drawing like this, it's a matter of looking just at the lights and the darks. So I've got kind of a dark hood effect going here. And you notice I'm not really drawing in the details of the head. because if you squint at it, it's hard to see those head details. I'm going to have dark spots on the secondaries coming a little ways out here. And then they stop. So that's a little ways out here and they stop. I'm going to put a little hint of, there's just a little bit of barring in there. There's a little bit of barring here. Maybe a little bit of barring there. And some dark wing tips. Out there on the tail, there's a little bit of dark barring going that way. And then there I go. So I'm going to let the color of the paper here, the color of the paper be the color of the shadow. Actually, I think I'm going to, do I want to make that a little bit darker? No, I think I'll just leave it like that. So I want to use the color of the paper as one of my values. Now, well, Harriers hold their wings in a V. So very often when you're looking at them from the side, the wing seems to be really short. So if they're flying along or then that what was a longer wing appears to you as a shorter wing because you're looking at a foreshortened view of it. So that means that this bump here and then this kind of flat part to the fan is going to get scrunched down into a short area. Let's take a look at how we might kind of block that in. So for this, I'm going to, on this little side view Harrier, I have a wing that sticks up. I have a section on the top of that that is the primaries, a section on the bottom of that that is the secondaries. I have a little head that sticks out here, a little tube of a body that contours in with undertail coverts to a tail so it's more flat along the back. And the bird is then kind of looking down here. So as these fly along, they're looking down. Oh, here you can really see that dish face, that really cool dish face. That dish face helps collect sound. All right, let's block this one in. So the secondaries, there's that curve. All right. So this is going to come out flat and then kind of tuck in. This part here is curving in there. And then I want to think of this outer part as two different sections, these primaries. There's this part here where there's a little bit of the fanning of that feathers, and then there is a flatter part. And here we go. So I've got a shorter feather. I have a longer feather, and I have a longer feather. Notice I'm aiming these towards this point right in here. And I'm going to aim you here and down. This one, you can see there's another wing in the back. I'm leaving that out for now just to make my drawing easier. Easier to draw, easier to visually understand. Now on this, what am I going to do? Well, I can see one of these really cool field marks of the northern harrier here on this bird, and that is this big white rump patch. So I'm going to pop that in so it really stands out. That's such a distinctive feature of these birds. Let's see, there is a little pump here, and we're going to come down. Now, what about this? Well, I'm going to put in a little bit of darkness on, if you kind of squint at it, the underside of the wing and the secondaries is fairly dark. You get that in juveniles and in females. And so I'm just going to put in a little bit of dark there. Where else is there dark? There's dark in that head. Kind of, sometimes it feels like these things are wearing a helmet. So I'm just generally putting in areas of dark. Now I'm going to put in, oh, dark in here too. Now I'm going to put in details. So I've got dark wingtips. And then the bars across these tend to make little curving lines.
Hey, Jack, would it be possible for you to zoom in a little bit on what you're drawing? It's a little bit
I
small on the
probably
screen.
can. Yes, I can. There we go.
Great, thank
Well,
you.
And I'm going to put in some darker, just sort of, instead of thinking of drawing in like, what are the feathers here? I've got longer, sort of darker feathers here. I can keep kind of squinting back at the screen, looking at that bird. That helps me kind of roughly get in these areas of lights and darks. Now, 3 clear rows of darks in here. And then I'm going to put this bird against a lighter sky. Let's just do one more. I've got more birds here. Let's just do this one more little flying raptor. On this one, I've made this little model of a wing here, where I've got my primary feathers out here, my secondaries here. This bird has got its wing folded, something like that. So then when it holds this towards you, like that, what you're seeing is a foreshortened secondary area, and then you're seeing the primaries really, really foreshortened. And on the other side, the part that is pointing away from you, you're seeing the wrist, just the wrist of the bird in there. So it's whenever time you're having a hard time figuring out like what's going on with the wing, it's really useful to make a little wing model like this, and then hold it at different angles to try to figure out what is happening with our bird friend. So this one is going to have a similar little body. There's a big bird head. It's looking out this way.
Can you center your canvas?
Oh, we're off the screen. Thank
Perfect.
you. Little tail. So its wing is, secondaries are coming up big, right? And actually I need to bring this up here more. And then the primaries are shooting back here into the head of my other bird friend. I have another little wing that is in there. So I very often will kind of block in the basic shape of my bird at the start. Then I can, all right, with this one, where is, let's first draw in the bird. I have the front edge of the wing here. I'm coming back to, I see some of the primary feathers coming here into the head of the other bird. We have the rump that comes down to the long tail. We're seeing that tail mostly in side view with a little bit of a view of the underside of it. I have talons. Underbelly of the bird. In the far wing, I can see part of the top and part of the underside of it. Maybe I made my wing stick out too far, just a little bit. Now, again, I'm just going to think about lights and darks. So, what am I going to do for this? All right, let's put in where I see my lights, bunch of lights on the underside of the wing here. Then where do I see my darkest darks? Okay, out here in these wingtips. There's this back edge of the secondaries. A little bit on the tail. Kind of getting a necklace look on this bird. And I've got a little bit of another value in here where I see these secondary feathers. And I'm going to let the gray of the paper be the tone in there, the gray of the paper be the shadow. And so again, using that system where I have dark, light, and the gray of the paper. Oh, let's put some details on. Details are always fun. Oh, this guy has all these little spots. And it's so much fun to draw these little spots over the white. Just put in a little detail like this, and our birds start to feel really detailed. But you do those little details on the white pencil at the end. I don't know if I ever taught that before in a class, but that's a nice thing in the order of operations. A little pencil detail comes in at the end. But let's take a look at another bird that we commonly find in this area. This might have been a more difficult one to start with, but this bird is going to be just in your face all over at any season. They're such interesting birds, extremely intelligent, great at solving problems. And there's a really harsh black and white. So you're thinking, ooh, where's the gray going to come in? I just need black and white. Wait for it, wait for it. We will use the gray. Notice that there's this strange white strip on the back. To draw these birds, it helps to understand their structure a little bit. And this bird in flight helps us do that. So these feathers here, these black zone here, these are the secondary feathers, secondary coverts, secondary coverts. This part out here that's black and white, this triangle, those are the primaries. They have black tips, big white zone, and then you get black little coverts right up here. This white strip on the back are called scapular feathers. They're the back feathers, the scapular feathers. And so when the bird has its wing all folded up, the back will cover these scapular feathers to various degrees. So sometimes this is a large white stripe. Sometimes on the same bird, you'll see this as a short white stripe. So on this, here's what I would do. I'm going to draw this bird. At first, you're going to think, oh, I see what part I'm going to make black. I'm going to put some white, but hang on for a second, because what I like to squint at the bird and figure out where is it the brightest. Obviously, the white is pretty bright, but the brightest white is going to be up in here, up in here. It's a little bit more in shadow here. And also, when you squint at it, you'll notice that the back here is a darker gray than the value of these wings that are reflecting green and blue in here. So these are reflecting back more light. For this, I might modify my system here to make my black a medium black and a dark black. You also can do the same thing with white to make your white a medium white and a strong white. So let's take a look at how that can look, drawing this beautiful magpie. When I'm drawing something like this, I will very often start just by imagining I'm patting the back of the bird. Everybody pat the magpie. Feel your hand go down that back and onto the tail. Pat the bird, pat the bird, pat the bird. Notice how when you look at the out of focus leaves behind the bird, it is easier to notice the contour of the bird than when you're distracted by looking at the bird itself. So try just looking at the screen and drawing the back without looking at what you do. Right? And then you can look down at your pencil line and go like, oh, I kind of like that. And maybe want to make that a little bit longer, and maybe you want to come out a little bit more. But sometimes just looking at the bird itself as you're drawing that initial contour line will help you be able to get that. We call that a blind contour. So a few places on your paper, try that. Just look at the bird, back of the head, back and tail. What does I'm trying to get and just sort of feel that contour. Now I'm going to put in a little oval here for the size of the head of my bird and a little line showing where its beak goes. And look at the shape of the background in front of the throat. There's a clear curve, and then it comes to a little point and it drops down. So there's a little kind of chesty moment that sticks out right in there. So a curve above to a little chesty point, and then we're coming down. Then I'm going to tuck a ball behind that. There's a little bit of undertail coverts. And then the legs come down in two parts. There's this little kind of pantaloons part, and then you see the tarsus of the bird sticking down below that. So I'm going to draw its little pantaloons coming down a little ways, and then the tarsus. So pantaloons and tarsus. Notice that those legs are at slightly different angles. What about the wing? Where's the wing start? The wing starts at a point kind of close to here, and it ends up over the tail. Right? So it's coming in there. So I've got sort of a beam of the wings coming in here. There is a small chunk of coverts, and then the belly of the bird. A little white patch on the side. So I'm blocking in the different parts that I see. Now, I'm going to draw in my lines on my bird, and then I'm going to shade it in with two values, a middle gray and a dark gray. All right, so sort of fairly smooth slope down to the beak. A little roundy head. Down the back of the bird. And it kind of pops out a little bit. And then down. What about the throat? There's that curve that we talked about, angle. And then we're going to round around the belly of the bird. Down here in the back, it gets a little bit shaggy. So I'm putting some little shaggy marks. These feathers that tuck right in here are called undertail coverts. I've got my corvid pantaloons here. So thicker part, thinner part, thicker part, thinner part. And my wings are coming to a point here. And then, so for the wings right now, I'm going to keep my wing detail really simple. Something that I think is kind of cool is we're seeing a little bit of that far wing flopping over the top of it. There's a little zone of covert feathers up in here, but I'm not going to really get lost in detail in there. My tail is going to stick out. I'm going to give mine a little bit of a swish up because sometimes I see these birds doing that and it looks really cool. This is in 2 parts. So what about the lights and the darks? Let's see. Underneath the tail there, we're going to go all the way black. The pantaloons, dark. You agree? Now, but let's look at the back and the head. Squint at it. There's a little bit of a glisten of light across the top. And you see that kind of coming onto part of the back. And I'm just, there'd be hard to say like where the line of that is, but I'm going to sort of make a line somewhere in there. I'm going to make this back part a medium gray. Similarly, I'm going to make the, I'm going to do that. So I'm going to make the beak a medium gray. And then this part in here, get to go dark. Now, the reason that I am able to kind of cover the territory so quickly and make this all dark really fast, and it might be harder with your pencil, is because I have a very soft lead and a really blunt tip and a wide tip. And that makes the the drawing of the bird go a lot more quickly. Just a little bit of back of my bird. And I'm going to bring that middle gray down into here too. Now, what about the white? This part here on the top gets the best white. I'm going to put a little bit of white really bold right up in here next to that black. And then I'm going to fade a white across here. But check this out. I'm going to leave that bottom part of it the color of the paper. And then I have the sense of this little shadow coming in under there because of the color of the paper. See one other little nugget in here, some covert feathers that want to be black. And then I stop. What about the eye? Well, squint and it's hard to see it. So I'm just going to leave that entirely out. Let's try a corvid, the bird from a different angle. So squint at it and decide for yourself what is going to be the black, what's going to be a medium gray, what's going to be the color of the paper, what's going to be the white, There's a lot of ways you could sort of separate those kind of zones out, but I'll show you what I'm going to do. All right. I'm going to start the drawing the same way. I'm going to have the back of my bird, and it has a big head down in here. It's looking kind of this way, that. I like to put kind of cross beams through my bird heads. It has a body in here. It has a tail going out there. And there's some little birdie feet somewhere in there doing something cute. Now, this dark that I see in the front of the hood, if I have a cylinder and I'm drawing a curve across that, that curve comes down and it hooks up as it kind of disappears into there. So I'm really going to, I want to tell myself, think of this as round. I'm going to draw this little, here's the center line of my bird coming down here. And here's this curve coming across that and hooking up. I have some wingness sticking out that way. Hard to see exactly what's going on with those feathers in there. So I'm not going to worry about it. Now, I'm going to draw in over this. I'm going to start with that beak because it's kind of caught my curiosity and interest. There's a point at the top and a larger point on the bottom. And then I'm going to stop. There is kind of a deep shadow zone going across the front of the head. And then I have a head that is flat in this axis. It comes down, and then it's going to meet this line at the back here. This side comes down, hits a sharp corner right there, and back. Back of my bird here, I have a wing tucking in here. There's a little bit of white feather tucking in here. And I see that there is a bit of those scapulars on the back. And then I have this cool arc that come down to the center line, flat across the center line, and hook up the other side. I want to come all the way down. Don't start coming up until you get past that center line. And then curve up sharply. Belly of the beast. We can't really see, but there are undertail coverts in there. And so the dark part I find always really fun. Where's my darkest dark going to be? My darkest dark down here in the throat. Yeah. Notice with that dull pencil how quickly I can cover real estate. And that's just that dull pencil working for me. It allows me just to get really dark. It's a soft pencil, so it's really dark, really fast. I'm gonna take out a few of those little twigs in there just to make this bird's perch a little bit simpler. And now I'm going to have a lot of, let's make that a medium gray. Now I'm going to have a lot of fun with the white, and I'm not going to just make that belly all white. I am going to put some white up in the shoulder. I'm going to put some white up into the little part that sticks up in here, and maybe a little bit of white along the top edge of this. And then I'm gonna put a little line of white along the far side. The rest, I'm gonna let be shadow. So really using that color of the paper as one of your values, that's something that makes sketching on toned paper so much fun. All right. Let's try a quick sketch of this one. So it's a smaller sketch over there. So everybody all together now. How would you go about doing that? I'll show you what I'm going to do. You can start your drawing. I go kind of down the back of the bird. Put in a ball for the head of my bird, and then my bird's looking up a little bit to the right. There's a scoop to an angle out in the tummy, and then it starts to go down, and that's where I put in that ball of the body. Oh, we're off the page. So this is going to be a smaller drawing. It's going to go faster. The smaller I make the drawing, the faster it goes. I'm going to draw through the branch on that tail. And we have legs that are coming out, branch somewhere in there. Now let's check out that body length compared to the tail. Mine's about the same. Ooh, in real life, it is longer. Okay. I can handle that. Now, I want to think of the center line of the bird is over here. And that line is going to come down and across the center line. I'm going to make this bill shorter because it's looking a little bit away from me. Steep forehead, a little bit of a bump. On this bird, the scapular feathers are all fluffed out over the top of the wing there. So just look at it as a shape. It comes over, it comes down, it comes back. And it has a big side on the top, small side down there. My tail starts to come down, disappears behind this branch. I'm going to make my branch a little bit more interesting. Notice a little bit of stepping here as you go up the tail. Step, step, step. So those are wing feathers of different, tail feathers of different lengths that you're seeing down there. With this, I'm going to keep it really simple. I'm going to just, what can I do for middle value of gray? Maybe something lighter in here where you're seeing that reflection. Yeah, where I'm seeing those green reflections, I'm going to put in a lighter black. The rest of it, I'm just going to go straight jet black. And I've got that nice soft pencil, broad pencil that lets me bold dark back here. Anytime I'm feeling kind of overwhelmed by something, just kind of like if you're starting like, oh no, what's a middle gray, what's a black, just go for the darks being all dark. But then intentionally use the gray of the paper for one of your values. Here it's going to be the shadow on the tummy. We're going to do one. I just want to do a time check. How am I doing for time?
You're doing fine. It's about 6:20, so you've probably got a good 15-20 minutes to go.
Okay, good. Okay, then I'm gonna go back. I was worried that I had gone on too long. Let's just what I'd love to do is just let's do a series of Corvid speed draws, right? So from this guy, what we're going to do is we're going to try to we're going to have the bird up there. We're not going to take very much time on it. We're going to try to see if we can get some of these bird shapes just down really, really quickly. So I'm just looking at this one. What am I probably going to do? I'm probably going to have head dark, probably going to have two values of black. So a dark black and a medium black. And then I'm going to have my white of my pencil. Where will I use the light gray on this? I think I might use it on maybe the bill, maybe part of the wings here. Yeah, that might work. Okay. So I'm going to look at it and let's just go for a kind of just a fast drawing. Let's make this. So moderators, could you tell me when 2 minutes are up? Is that agreed? You ready?
Yeah, we can do that.
Excellent. On our marks, get set, go. So we've got, oops, let's stick on the page.
That's 2 minutes.
So if you didn't finish, that's okay. we want to sort of think of these as just sort of, we want to kind of get our brains to, we're kind of want to look at these birds as collections of values, lights and darks, and get that, sort of simplify it with our head and then get it down on paper. Simplify it in your head and then get it down on paper. Let's try that with this bird. Could you let us know when 1 minute is up? Are we good?
Go ahead.
All right. So
That's time.
all right. So if our birds look a little bit funky, that's okay. But if we get something that is some will help us remember some aspect of that, that's going to be really useful. These are such beautiful birds. When you get them in good light, the iridescence across their bodies is just, it's breathtaking. If we want to analyze a bird like this a little bit more, we can see some interesting things that are going on it. Here on the face, I'm seeing a little bit of a shadow right in here where you can see my pencil, my arrow tracing. That is the bird's ear patch, right? You're seeing the scapular feathers coming down here, the back feathers here. On this wing, if you've studied wing anatomy before, this black part in here are the median and lesser secondary coverts, the greater secondary coverts across here. These big blue area are the secondaries, and below that you see the long primaries coming through to the primary coverts to this black feather right here is the alula. These are the undertail coverts right here, sliding down to the bird's vent. And here's our tail. And here you can clearly see that we've got a series of tail feathers that get progressively longer as you go out. This bird has a heel that is here. It has a knee that's hidden under the feathers and then a hip that is up in here. So it's going to go from a hip to a knee. We're seeing the back of its shin and its heel sticking out. And that's why this leg bends in this direction. It's not a backwards facing knee. It is a normal facing heel. These feathers that you can see down here are equivalent to, are homologous with the bones that are in your instep. So that is, so we find those tarsus bones coming down here. You see one claw sticking back in the back. There are 3 forward. We don't see 3 forward in here, but there are 3 hiding behind those little bushes there. Another thing to notice, the feathers in the beak come way out, this bushel of feathers over the beak in front. That is that's a very corvid thing. You'll see that in a lot of corvids, these feathers that stick out there. So now we're going to do a medium time period sketch, and we're going to see if we can get some of those details onto our page using this system. I'm going to back out a little bit so you can see the whole drawing. So I start the same way. What is I feel my pencil along the back of the bird, feel along the back of that bird. I do that also, especially if the bird's moving around a lot. This posture along the back of the bird will change a lot as the bird changes poses. And it really helps you get the motion and the energy of the bird. Put in a ball for my head. And then let's look at what's happening under the throat here. We've got a little bit of a kind of curve coming down, something like that. I just take that curve down a little bit just to give me room to then stick my body ball underneath it. I like to put in the body ball as a big unit. And the reason I'm doing that is that if I just draw this line around, sometimes my bird just gets a little bit too skinny. When I'm drawing the body ball, that's when I'm really looking at the volume across here. So I'm not just looking at it as a line over here and a line coming down here. I want to think of the volume, the mass between this side and this side. And that really helps me get my sense of proportions. Where does this bird's wing start? Fairly far back here. Fairly far back, and it's going right over the wing. And kind of making a little wedge like that. We have a little bit of our scapula in there. I think I might want to put more scapula in, scapular feather. And now this getting this swoop across the front, is a really important line. And especially as it kind of starts to go off in this direction, if you hit it at the wrong angle where it hits this edge, it'll make your bird feel flat. So what you want to do is you want to imagine this as a three-dimensional bird, and you're coming down and you're swooping in there. Maybe I want it a little bit steeper. As now I'm looking at like how much white do I want in there? Maybe my bird is a little bit too long. Look at that. Look at the amount of white in here and compare the one over there. This is a smaller drawing that one over there, and this is about the length of the one over there. So I would want this then to be smaller. And at this stage in a drawing, it's just that easy to change those sorts of proportions. Got my tail coming up. You think of the mass of the body of the bird dropping down here. So underneath here, sort of the balance point here, the feet are going to be coming to some point in along a line like this where that bird would balance. So my back leg is coming down, bending to that point. I guess that bird in the photograph is crouching a little bit more than mine. I can make mine a little bit more crouching tiger here. Crouching pika, hidden magpie. And in this one, I am going to draw the eye, and all the rest of them, all the birds so far, I haven't drawn the eye. But this one, I am going to draw the eye, but you're going to see it's going to be a little hint of an eye. It's not going to be, I'm not going to draw a really bold eye. It's going to hide in a bunch of the feathers. And it's roughly going to go back here. So I'm looking at how close that is to the back of the beak here. That's roughly feels good. Enough space in the back of it. Yeah. All right. Now, before I kind of get into this, my bird feels a little bit forward weighted. Imagine this thing all drawn in and the feet landing here. See how it wants to just tilt forward just a little bit? What could I do about that? what could I do about that? I'm going to bring this foot forward just a little. And now that foot is going to be landing in there, and that feels a little bit better to me. One last other thing, I could make this bird, my bird is looking up a little bit more. I might make my bird look down. A little bit more. So I can match that photograph. You don't have to match any photographs when you're drawing in the field, but then again, they don't sit still for you. So I recommend that people draw from photographs a bunch, draw from life a bunch, do them both, and cross training with those two approaches is a great way to get your magpie on. So what am I going to have be the light gray of the paper? So I'm squinting at this and I'm looking for sort of a middle value, and I'm seeing some light values here in the upper parts of this wing and the tail here where it's doing a lot of reflecting. I think that's going to be the gray of my paper. In the head here, I'm going to put in 2 degrees of darkness. The really dark, the dark part, dark, and the part that's reflecting. All right. So my value range is going to be 2 in the pencil, 1 in the gray, and also this might be gray down here. That might be gray there. Same value as that. That little shadow on the white. So then I'll have my white, and the white will stop somewhere in there. All right. So I pick up my favorite soft pencil again. This is a twist erase Pentel pencil. I have 2B lead in it, and it's a 7mm pencil. That's why it's really dark. That's the 2B, and kind of broad, so it easily makes these broad dark marks. That is the 0.7. 0.5, like this, is a little bit skinnier. All right. Remember to breathe. If you look carefully, there's sort of a black hood line that kind of comes in here. A little bit of chunkiness coming out under the throat here. Got an eye that will be in here, and the eye is going to end up mostly hidden. And there's a little arc of ear patch feathers in there. The eye is really not going to be showing up very much at the end of this sketch. I am going to want just a little hint of it. Now, there is a really wonderful...
Not to interrupt your flow too much, but it is 6:40, so you asked for the 20-minute notice.
Okay, so do I have 5 minutes left?
Sure. So that'll give us 15 minutes for questions. That sounds good.
Okay, so yeah, I'll finish this up in 5 minutes, and we'll even put color on it. And then the top edge of this, I'm going to make a little bit scraggly. Here's my little white patch. Here's this cool little, the covert feathers. And the wing is tucking in here. Let's see what we have going on. It's a beautiful, thank you again, photographers. Love your work. Gorgeous, gorgeous animal. Next time you see a magpie, just spend some time in awe of what a gorgeous, resilient critter that is. Now on this back in here, let's get some of those feathers sort of sticking out underneath it. Here in this side. All right, now I'm going to get into those values. So here's dark, the dark kind of dark. And underneath here, I'm going to put in the very dark, 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 dark. And on the tail, I'm going to put in my medium gray coming down here, and it's going to turn into just the pale of the, I want some more of that color of the paper right in there. On the wing coming in, and then letting the gray of the paper take it over in that towards the top of the little reflecting zone in here. And this wonderful little hood. Notice that my pencil strokes, if they were feathers, this might be the direction that those feathers would go. If any of my pencil strokes kind of show up through, this helps to kind of guide people's eye and say, here's what you're looking at. These feathers are running in these directions. And if there's any little highlights that are being picked up on those, they would now I'm going to make parts of this face really dark, like the dark, 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 the dark kind of dark. And right there under the beak, I just kind of gonna make my beak too short a little bit. It's easy to overdo it. Now I'm going to hide the eye. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to ahead of time put in a little bit of white. So I put a bunch of white in its eye, and then I'm going to put dark in the rest of the eye. So there'll just be a little bit of, see, the eye's mostly hidden. I don't see that eye much. Now here in the chest, I want to go all dark. How much time do I have left?
It is 6:45. So whenever you're ready for questions.
Okay, I'm just gonna drop my pencil in. Right? This is the fun part, right? The part I've been waiting for. Wee! Woo! It is really fun to put the white pencil on. So it's so much fun. You're going to want to put it down all the way to the edge. Oh, but no, you're not going to. You're going to resist that temptation. So you leave your bird a little bit of tummy shadow. Be glad you did. And if I want to get really fancy, did he just put some blue in there? Yep. And oh, there's some green. And a little bit of cyan up here. that in on those values that have already been established. Gotta love magpies. But one thing I think I'm going to do before I go, I'm just going to get this curve. What is that? Bring that out just a little. There we are. All right. And scene. So I hope that this was fun for you, and that you had some, like, you're not thinking like, okay, this colored pencil thing, I'm tone paper, I'm kind of getting it. What I've got on my grocery bag here, I can work with this. And so I'm hoping that you're now going to be both inspired to run out with a pad of paper, and also the next time that you encounter a magpie, not just kind of like a magpie, right? But go like, oh, magpie, right? Such gorgeous, gorgeous birds. So let's take some questions for me and also questions for Bob. Are there any in the chat?
There's quite a few questions coming in the Q&A. And first, I wanted to give a thank you again to you, Jack, and Bob, and of course Christine, who's not here tonight, but this has been an amazing series of webinars, and we've had such a great response, so thank you for everyone who's joined us. As I mentioned at the top, this is part of a grant that we received, so I forgot to do this last week, but we have a quick little demographic poll, if you wouldn't mind filling that out. That helps us report back to our funders. So that would be greatly appreciated, but I will go ahead and jump into some of these questions. Looks like a lot of questions about the tools that you're using. When you're sketching on tone paper for real or not teaching a class, do you use the blue copy knot, col erase pencil, or do you use a graphite pencil?
So when I'm doing on these demonstrations, and so for the tone paper, here's my favorite pencil for kind of doing some of those preliminary sketches. It is as somebody described, the blue copy knot col erase non-photo blue pencil. This is my go-to pencil on white paper for sketching things. It turns out to be so pale it doesn't show up well on gray paper. So I recommend just using another colored pencil. I was using a mechanical pencil with some purple lead in it, and that shows up well for me.
Great.
And if I use this on the tone paper, it tends to be like, where did my lines
go? The next two questions are also about pencils. The first one is, what graphite product do you recommend, and do you use the same pencil the whole time?
So I was using that purple pencil to kind of block in the basic shape, and once I got that, I was using that same pencil the whole time, that 2B lead 0.7 pencil. So for all the drawings in this, that is becoming my favorite fast sketching pencil. I mean, that I think it is by far and away my favorite fast sketching pencil, because it never gets dull, but it's dull enough to cover big, broad areas. And the 0.5 millimeter lead in a mechanical pencil is just a little bit more finicky, and to cover a big area, you have to kind of get in there like, with this, it's just like, I'm covering this area. And so for fast sketching, that's great. And also I like the 2B lead. And I don't remember which brand of lead that I'm using, but it's a great source for information on that is I would go to, there's a website called jetpens.com, And their team often tests all sorts of lead for like which ones are the most breakable. Like some brands, they like to break a lot. And so they will do these reviews of, how opaque are different kinds of gel pens, how breakable are these different kinds of lead. What about colored pencil lead? Which ones are the most breakable? And so they will test them all for you and give you a graph of their results. And I find that a very useful website. Again, it's called Jet Pens. So shout out to them.
That may answer this one, but do you have any of these pencils available on your store?
Not at this time, but we're looking into doing that because a bunch of people have been saying like, okay, that's cool. But they're actually really easy to find. So they're called, so I like these because these mechanical pencils tend not to break a lot. It is the twist erase pencil. And they also do this little trick. You go like, here's my eraser coming up. Is there like all sorts of crazy eraser hidden in the handle? And it's a soft white eraser. It's a nice little eraser. It doesn't get all nasty and make pink smudges on your paper. Oh no, not this one. And you can sit there and go like this. I don't have those on my website at this time, but we've been thinking of starting to carry it. So what I want to do, I'm going to carry it if I can do this. What I want to do is I want to be able to order like 0.5 millimeter purple ones and get the purple lead so you can have a purple pencil with the purple lead in it. And then the black ones with the black lead in them. I don't like it when I have the purple pencil with black lead in it. That's not going to work for me. So I want to be able to pick it up and kind of go like, I know which color is going to be coming out. So I've got blue ones. Guess what color lead they have in them? Yep.
Great. Yeah, we actually did have a question about which purple lead, but it looks like that may have been answered in the chat.
I can go over. It's not going to be. I'm going to walk all the way across the room, and I'm going to answer that question.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, you bet. We aim to please here at the Lahontan Audubon Society. This is for you. While I'm looking around for this, hey folks, would you run out and join your local chapter of the Audubon Society? No, for real. It is great for several reasons. One, it's going to connect you with this community of really amazing people. And you're also then supporting this amazing education and conservation group. What the Audubon societies do across this country is amazing. For folks who are from across the pond, Royal Society for Protection of Birds, woo, woo. And it really makes a difference. Aha! Hey, it didn't take that long. It is the uni nanodio color. All right, this was recommended by the people on the JetPens website, and I went with it. I did a little bit of testing myself, and I'm like, yeah, JetPens is right. So this is the lavender 0.5 millimeter Nanodia, Nanodia color, and that's what I have my mechanical pencil loaded up with.
Perfect. And Jack, to your point about joining your local chapter of Audubon, we have received some comments about people saying my chapter doesn't do anything. Well, as Bob pointed out earlier, that starts with you. It's a grassroots thing. So if your chapter's not doing anything, you can make it happen.
But
we're happy to have you
there.
join our activities as well.
Yeah, be the Bob you want to see in the world, right?
Yeah.
You know, it could be you like taking that senator out in the canoe, and changes happen because people make changes. They do. You can also join the Lahontan Audubon Society, and they do a number of things online, and you can support them even if you're not in the area. Can we drop into the chat a place where people can make donations to support you if they felt so inclined, and they might?
If I might interject, excuse me, just a moment. There was a movement at Walker Lake to preserve Walker Lake. And this was taken on by a fellow who had no experience in public information or anything. And they have received multi-millions of dollars to help preserve Walker Lake. And this started with an individual who was passionate. And I think it takes a little bit of passion to go on. Yeah. And I would like to thank John for his power of observation is tremendous. My God, I've looked at birds for a long time, but he pointed out stuff there that, wow, thank you, John.
Bob, thank you so much. And again, you and what you do is inspiring. And so here's the important thing is to realize that we've all got some Bob in us. We've all got it in us to make a difference in our community. And, just sort of rolling back the clock. When I was a little kid, LA Water and Power was draining Mono Lake of every drop they could. And there was a young birder who was researching the gulls out there and saw the impact that this was having on the system out there, and went to his thesis advisor and said, this is awful. If this trend continues, this population, it's gone. Like this, somebody's got to stop it. And was told, David, what can you do? It's LA Water and Power, right? What can you do? It's LA Water and Power, right? And he did something. And David Gaines and a handful of other scrappy birders and locals and people who love the natural world around them fought, and it was hard, and they made a difference. And now if you go around, and they used to have these bumper stickers that said "Save Mono Lake," and they now say "Long Live Mono Lake." Right? I mean, that is, we've all got some Bob in us if we let it come out. We've all got some David Gaines in us, some Sylvia Earle just waiting to kind of get out and make a difference. And if we acquiesce, because the forces around us are big and powerful, they will win. But we are motivated by love of these natural systems and these wild places. And you get out into these places and it touches you and it moves you, and let that move you to action. And the secret then is to connect, build networks with other people around you, right? Alone we're weak, together we are mighty, and we are driven by love.
If I could interject just for a second here. When I do an environmental ed, I wrote a little deal up. It says, I am a drop of water. Alone, I am harmless. But I am joined by more and more drops of rain. I can move mountains. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's so true, Bob. That's beautiful. Did you write that?
Yes. And a snowflake also. A snowflake and a raindrop, and what they can do when they're joined in masses.
That's right. That's right. So, and also there are lots of forces right now that are deliberately dividing us against each other. Right? You're red state, you're blue state. You disagree with each other. You fight with each other. We don't get along. We don't have common interests. Right? But preserving these wild places in perpetuity for our, I mean, the future of our grandchildren is something that every blue stater and every red stater cares about.
Oh, John, that word you just said, when Senator Bryan ended his talk out at Swan Lake, he said, "I want my grandchildren to see this place." That was powerful, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And so we need to start thinking generations ahead, not just the next business cycle ahead.
Yep.
And yeah, working together with that long-term vision. And the fight is happening right now. And we can make a difference by organizing together and working together to protect these places, as you have done, as you are doing, and as you continue to do. And we do make a difference. We are making a difference. Look for the common ground between you and your neighbor, right? There's lots of like radio talk show hosts who will tell you that you have nothing in common with the person down the road from you because they have a different sign in front of their yard. And we have so much in common together. And so let's build bridges, let's organize, let's work together to protect what we love. And we can, we are. And again, your local chapter of the Audubon Society is a very powerful way to kind of initially connect with people with similar interests and to get that going. And if your local chapter isn't doing that, you can be the catalyst that drops into that hypersaturated solution and makes things happen. You can.
Right. Very good. Agreed totally.
Yeah, Bob, it's really an honor to be on this call with you.
Oh, well, I feel the same, yeah. I like your ideas, yeah, your perspective, yeah.
Are there other questions for myself and Bob?
There are other questions. We are over time, so I don't, it's up to you if you want to continue a little bit longer, or I know you're very generous with your time and have opportunities for people to ask questions during some sessions during the week, I believe.
That's right. Oh, yeah. So if you want more kind of hanging out with Jack, every week, every Tuesday is what we call Ask Jack. And it's a Zoom call that I do at 10 Pacific time for about an hour and a half. People come in with questions that they have about different aspects of drawing, and we kind of problem solve them together. So you pick the topic, we work with that. Every Wednesday is a discussion forum with educators of all different stripes about how to connect nature and journaling and art and science into our curriculums. Every Thursday is a workshop on some kind of expanding some aspect of nature drawing, where I'll have a lesson plan like I had today, like I had, you know, some slides drawn up. I knew what I was going to do. You knew what we're going to do. So there'll be like an equipment list often. And so it's a little bit more planned. And those are all fun ways to kind of get more of this. So if you want more Jack, that's where to find me. JohnMuirLaws.com is the website. You can find a list of activities there. And that is a useful resource.
Well, I want to thank you again, because this has been an incredible opportunity, and I think people, well, I know people have very much enjoyed it because we've gotten so much amazing feedback. So once again, thank you, Jack. Thank you, Diane, for writing the grant, for coming up with the idea to host these webinars. Parker, thank you for your help. Bob, for all that you've done for conservation in our area and beyond. And thank you everyone for joining us and supporting us. This has been a great opportunity, and we really hope that we can offer it again sometime soon. So keep an eye out. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great night.